Hello and welcome. Um, so this is the session on introducing accessible data visualization. I did say that we'd like everyone to introduce themselves in the chat, and I'm really sorry that the chat is disabled. This is the first time we're using the webinar format, so apologies, and next time it will not be the case. So just to say, if you have any access needs or support, you can email me actually on collective@datakind.org.uk. So if you're having any problems, let me know. The slides are shared in the chat, so you should be able to access the chat even if you can't post in it, is what I understand. And yeah, welcome. So today we're going to be discussing introducing accessible data visualization, and just so you know, I am Nish. I am the Data Collective Community Manager, we have shared the slides just so that you can follow along. So let us know. So for we will be recording the first 45 minutes of this, but we share that online on YouTube as an access thing, but we will not be sharing the last 15 minutes, which is the question and answer section. But please feel free to put your questions in the chat, not in the chat, in the question and answer section. Yeah, and welcome. So today we're actually joined by Thiago Carmo, who is Passion for Social's Managing Director, and who will be sharing learnings from his experience and knowledge gained with running accessibility audits. His team of disabled testers have delivered almost 100 audits for the private and public and third sectors, and collected several insights from people that experienced barriers: dyslexia, ADHD, autism, blindness, hard of hearing, and motor disabilities. Passion for Social also runs the programme for Accessibility for All, funded by the Scottish Government. And just before we start, just thought I'd let you know a little bit about the Data Collective, as I understand a lot of you are new to us entirely. So the Data Collective is a community for people who have work with data in the social sector. We run webinars like this. We also run workshops, and there's going to be a follow-up workshop to this session. And we also have a Slack space, which you can use to ask questions, seek advice, find out what's going on. And we also have a mailing list. So please do sign up on our website, which we'll share in the chat later on. But without kind of further ado, I will pass on to Thiago.
Hi, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depends on the point of view. Well, I'm Thiago. I'm the Managing Director of Passion for Social, as Nish said. Today, we are going to talk about data visualization, which is one of the things that most of you are interested in putting in your reports, or even communicating your website, some sort of data. And before we start, we'd like to run a poll just to understand your knowledge on data visualization and accessibility. So Nish, could you pop in the poll, please? So we have a couple of seconds to answer the poll. So the first question is, how much do you know about data visualization? So you have nothing, a little, a good amount, or lots. It's my area of expertise. And the second question we have, how much do you know about digital accessibility? So the questions are nothing, a fair amount, a good amount, and I'm an expert. So the answer, sorry. Nish, when you think that you can close the poll? Yeah. just for us to have an idea. So we have the results. Most of you know just a little about data visualization, and in second place with 27%, a good amount. And about accessibility, we see that 56% a fair amount, and 13% a good amount, and 31% nothing, which is very interesting. Thank you for answering the poll. It gives me more understanding of who you are and what you are expecting from this webinar. So I'm going to share my screen with the presentation that you also have access, as Nish said, on the chat. If you have any questions or anything, or you can't see any or can't access any of the information, just let me know. After the webinar, you can already download it through the link posted on the chat. And after the webinar, if you need any special format with the presentation, just let me know, get in touch with us. We are going to be happy to share in any alternative format. So you see here that the first slide is designed with the accessibility for all layout. This is a program that we are running in partnership with the Scottish government. So we are granted, and in partnership with Connect3, one of our partners to deliver this program. This program is pretty much to advertise and to educate the market in accessibility. So we have a lot of other webinars this year. That's the second year of the program. This year we are going to have around 6 or 7 topics on accessibility. So we are going to talk about social media. We are going to talk about accessibility on the workplace, accessibility in presentations, and on PDF. So we are going to have a range of topics. Just be tuned about what we are going to present. That's going to start in September. And this project is also meant to deliver accessibility audits. So make the audits viable, especially for organizations in the third sector. Usually an accessibility audit costs £3,000. So we are using this program to make it more accessible. So for organizations in Scotland, it's free for the first 50 that get in touch with us. And for organizations outside of UK, we charge £600 each audit. So we are getting 80% of discount. And the idea of this webinar as well is from today is giving away 3 accessibility audits. So it's the first come first served basis. So if you want to one of the audit, please email Nish about that, and then she can give you the name of the organizations that can have that. And besides that, everyone has access to the program. So let's crack on the presentation. Our agenda today is what is the data visualization, what is accessibility, what is accessibility in data visualization. Then we are going to talk about some challenges about WCAG 2.1 and 2.2, the 10 best practices in the data visualization, and some tools and resources for you all. So what is data visualization? Data visualization is the graphical representation of data and information. It allows us to see patterns, trends, and relationships that may not be apparent in raw data. And by presenting data in a visual format, we can better understand complex information and make informed decisions. The purpose of data visualization is to communicate information clearly and effectively through visual means. It can help us identify problems, opportunities, and insights that might otherwise go unnoticed. This also is a tool to make the more accessible, so people can see and can through images to understand the patterns and the trends that you want to talk about relationship of data. And what is accessibility? Accessibility is defined as meaning that people have access to the physical environment, transportation, information and communication technologies and systems, and other facilities and services. So it's pretty much the access to something. When you talk about digital accessibility, we're talking about everything that's online or offline, but it's in a digital world. So on the tablet, on mobiles, on laptop, and it's important to understand that accessibility is for everyone, not just people with disabilities. We are going to see after this slide a table that's going to be very interesting to prove that accessibility is for everyone. And over 35% of the population directly benefit from accessibility. And we always make this provocative question that do you want to miss out this market share? So it's something that you want to reach more people, be more inclusive for your organization. And besides that, that's the right thing to do. This should be reason enough to bake accessibility into products, services, experiences, workplaces, reports, and everything else. So this slide shows the types of disability. So I really like this table that we have in 5 columns and 3 lines touching the points of the sensories that we have. So the touch, all the sense that we have. So the touch, see, the hear, the speak, the cognition, and 3 lines that we see the permanent, temporary, and situational. So once we start crossing over, we can create personas for your organization. You can create personas for your website to understand how they are going to navigate your website. Personas for how they can access a report or your data that you're going to present. And I like to go through the columns. So for example, if you have the touch column and the situational scenario, you see like a person carrying a baby. So this person carrying a baby is using just one hand. And by using just one hand, the person is either accessing the laptop or a mobile or the tablet with just one hand. So imagine you navigating a website with just one hand, and you have to click on the data or on a button, and you just have to use one finger most of the time. So that's a situation that is exactly the same thing for a temporary situation, like a person that has an injury in their arm, and that they are also using just one hand, or even a permanent occasion that a permanent situation that a person just has one arm because of an accident, they lost one arm, so they have to use just one hand on navigation. So you see that it's not just about a person carrying or experiencing a disability, or it's about checking that everyone can benefit from being more accessible in different ways. So for example, if you cross the table with the speak column, so a situation apart could be a heavy accent. Perhaps some of you can't understand my accent properly because English is not my first language. So this is going to be a lack of accessibility per se. So having other ways to present the information, like in a slide or in the text, or using the captions, are a way to go beyond it and see that's a situational part of the experience. So this is a way that you can imagine that the accessibility can be for everyone, is for everyone. And another way that I also like to portray is, for example, with the C, the C column, which is the sense. So the sight. In a situational experience, you can have like you're outside and then you have the sun on your screen. So having more contrast in your screen, you can have a better experience in the navigation of the website, the data. And the same thing happens for someone with the cataract. That could be a temporary situation that someone's going to go for a surgery, but before that they are experiencing something that they cannot see properly. So they are going to access the keyboard, they're going to access a screen reader. So all those things you have to bear in mind that accessibility is for everyone. I hope everyone have understood this table, and it's a table that we often use in creating user journeys for websites. We often use to create user journeys for even graphic design. When you're going to release even a printed material, we always think about that, and to create the best and more accessible way to deliver the information that we want to deliver. So what is accessibility in data visualization? That refers to the ability of all individuals, regardless of their abilities, to understand and interpret the information presented in a visual format. This includes individuals with disabilities, such as blindness, low vision, or color blindness, and other cognitive impairments. So it's pretty much it includes everyone to the data that you are presenting. And there are various techniques, such as providing alternative text for images, using high contrast colors, providing audio descriptions, and ensuring that the content is structured in a logical and meaningful way. By implementing these techniques, designers and developers can ensure that their data visualizations are accessible to everyone. So that's accessibility and data visualization. And we have some of the challenges. Ensuring that the visualization is easily understandable by individuals with varying levels of cognitive abilities. This requires careful consideration of the information hierarchy, color contrast, and font size. So when you talk about the challenges, it's pretty much because when you have data visualization, we rely heavily on the site, rely heavily on people seeing the information. But some other people, they can't. Some people have barriers, like they can be color blinded, or they have a severe visual impairment, or they just have glasses and they are not wearing the glasses at the moment. So having a way that people can either zoom or distinguish from different colors or different size of fonts, and even have descriptions there, are going to help everyone. And ensuring that all interactive elements are compatible with keyboards and other assistive technologies, such as screen readers. This involves providing alternative text descriptions for images, charts, and graphs, and etc. So when we talk about keyboards, usually you have some navigation using the keyboards, that they are standard for accessibility. So for example, you have to press tab or space or shift or enter. Those keys, they are the common keys to use, or using keys that you use in the keyboard just to navigate. We also have assistive technologies. Some of you, perhaps, especially the ones that answered that they don't have much knowledge on accessibility. Assistive technologies are all technologies that they are created to help people with disabilities. So, for example, a person that has cerebral palsy, it's very difficult for them to type because of their condition, and then they just have other ways to access the content. So they have a special laptop or a special device that they connect to the laptop. They can read their eyeballs, so they navigate the entire screen using the eyeballs. Or even a person that they can't use their arms or legs. They just have like some devices that they can put their mouse and navigate like a mouse onto the screen. And the ones that are more popular or more known, they are the screen readers like JAWS, for example. That's the brand of the screen reader that many blind people or other people with visual impairments they use to navigate the screen or the content online. They use the screen reader. So for every navigation, the screen reader reads back to the person that's using this assistive technology. So we need to be sure that we are delivering the right content in the right form, in the right format, just for those assistive technologies, and keyboard also access it. The other usage of a keyboard are for people that have motor disabilities, that they have difficulties to use a mouse, for example, or even the mouse tab that you have on the laptops. It's very, very difficult for them because either they suffer from tremblings or they have a difficulty to click, and this is a way to ensure that keyboards is also one of the ways. So one of the things that I want to touch in here is about the WCAG 2.2. The WCAG 2.2 was created by the Web3 Consortium. That's an international organization that they look for the best practices to use online. And then they created the first version of the WCAG was created in the 90s. And then they start with 1.0, then 1.1, then they start changing. The most recent one is the 2.1 that's been in the market since the beginning of the decade of the 2010 onwards, and then it's about to release the 2.2. We already have the draft. They are going to release it, and the WCAG are the guidelines for accessibility. And these guidelines, they are divided in 4 principles, which are the perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. I'm going to the graph in a clockwise way, just because it's the easiest way to go through. So the perceivable principle is pretty much everything that's presented to the users. So what the users can perceive. So it's something that the users can see right away if it's accessible or not. When you talk about the operable principle, is pretty much about the interface components for navigation. So it's very related to the backend of the applications of the websites. So how it was designed, how it was created, and how it's being navigated by the devices you are using. The other one is the understandable principle, which is connected to the language, to connect to the how you present the information. So pretty much the graphs, the visual, the data visualization will be lying in this principle, the understandable one, but also in the others, because the way that you navigate, if you use a keyboard, you're going to be the operable. If the graph is not doesn't have enough contrast with the colors, is not going to be perceivable. So the understandable is connected to the other two, but there's another level of understanding of the presentation you're putting there. So, for example, if you use a very difficult English or any other language that you're creating your content, if it's a difficult as per se to say, like for academics or even for people that has a vast vocabulary, so you are excluding people to access that content. So it's better to use a plain English that everyone can understand, or a plain language that everyone can understand, so you can pass on this understandable principle. And finally, we have the robust principle, which is the way that all the assistive technologies interpret all the other three principles. So it's just double checking if the other three principles are being respected, and especially by assistive technologies. Going deeper on the WCAG 2.2, we brought this table just to give you how the WCAG is divided. So you see on the first line of the table, divided by 5 columns. So the first line, you have the principles, which is perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And then you have the guidelines, the types of guidelines. So we are talking about text alternatives for perceivable, time-based media, adaptable, distinguishable. And for the operable, we are talking about keyboard accessibility, enough time to navigate, seizures and physical reactions. So there are some things that happens when you have a website, for example, and you have like a banner that keeps blinking or a banner that keeps moving. This is very much something that a person can suffer from, that suffers from seizures or other physical reactions, can get dizzy or something. So it's not recommended to have this type of content on the screen. And the operable, still in the operable, we are going to measure the navigability. So how you can click, how you can navigate, how you can find information. So it's about the architecture of the information that we put on the screen. And also in the input modalities. When you talk about input modalities, we are talking pretty much about forms, how we are going to use the form, a form. And when you go to understandable, we are talking about the readability, the predictability. So if this is predictable, so the next button is next. Okay, so it's predictable. That's going to be next. So if you put on the right for of course for Occidental cultures that we read from left to right, if you put on the right the previous button is not predictable for the user. So if a person doesn't know how to read and they click on the previous on the right side, it's not going to pass on the understandable principle. So that's the idea of being understandable. And also the input assistance. The input assistance, sorry for the typo, there is a double S in assistance, and the second part of the assistance. So one of these is the input assistance is related to the forms. So when you're going to fill in a form, for example, and you have the name or the surname, and then you have the address. So you need to have those question marks or an explanation of the field, just for the person to understand what they have to do that. It often happens with when you're going to fill in your telephone number, and some forms they ask for the code, so the plus 44, or some others they don't. So you never know how you have to fill in the form. So having these input systems, you would pass on the accessibility because you're going to inform the user about that. And the robust is only about compatibilities of the assistive technology. So it's compatible with JAWS, compatible with Snapdragon and other assistive technologies. And then in the third line of the table, you have success criteria. The success criteria are the levels and the levels that you are going to pass through these guidelines. So have level A, level AA, and level AAA. These levels are to measure how much you can go with the accessibility. And then you see that the WCAG 2.2 draft, the ones that were added. So these numbers on front of each level are the numbers of success criteria. Sorry for being too technical in here. It's just to give you like a quick review about the WCAG 2.2, because that's one of the references that's important to follow when you're creating data visualization and other types of visualization. And then finally, it's going to be an easier content for you to understand is all the 10 best practices that we have selected for you. So the first one is to provide a text summary of the visualization, make sure that describe trends and patterns. So even if you have the entire graph, the visualization of the graph, please put this down on a summary. So if a person experiences blindness or other visual impairments, they can understand by an explanation of what the graph is. So this graph has 3 bars, and the bars show the level of population in the country with X% for this, Y% for that. So have this type of explanation that helps people that doesn't have access to the visualizations of the graph or any other data that you want to represent. The second best practice is to make the data available in an accessible table format. So having these in table makes it easy for other people to access the table and navigate with the columns and lines. The third best practice is about ensuring a sufficient contrast and separation between elements and the visualization. So you see, for example, if you have a graph, if you give more space in between the column, between the bars, it's going to be more it's going to be easier to see each column, if not to see everything as a blur or everything together. So give separation. If you're going to use colors, use the color contrast. And talking about colors, that's the fourth best practice. So don't rely on color alone to convey information, and ensure colors used can be distinguished by people with various forms of color blindness. So usually use an icon and the color and the written part of what you want. This helps you to be redundant to deliver the information. Then you have the fifth best practice is about ensuring the text is readable by having a big font size, a legible font type, and using plain language. Usually, we recommend to use font types sans serif. Serif are those lines that you have in the fonts that you have, for example, in Times New Roman, for example. It's more difficult to read those type of fonts, especially for people with dyslexia. And you using a bigger font, you're easing the way to have to access for people that is short-sighted, for example, and or require other ways to read it. And as I said before, use a plain language just to make it easier. The number 6 for the best practice is to prefer a simple, familiar visualizations over complex novelties. So using those data visualizations with too many dots, too many traces and everything makes it difficult to understand. Sometimes you can't run away from it, but then you have to explain better in other means. But try to use visualizations that are easier and more familiar for people. The 7th best practice is make interactive visualizations, so keyboard accessible, that I have talked before. The number 8 is if you're using animations or movement in the visualization that can be distracting, allow the user to turn this off. So, and the respective prefers reduce motion CSS medium feature when relevant. This is very technical already. So when you have the designer or developer doing this, make a way that you're going to turn off the movements or the animations if you really want to use them. I don't recommend usually to use a lot of movement on the visualization just because it distracts people, and especially people with ADHD or even dyslexia, they can get a little bit annoyed, and not counting on the people that they can suffer from seizures and other physical reactions by seeing animation. But if you do, please make a way to turn this off. Then ensure the visualization is responsive to different screens and zoom levels. So ensure that you are going to put the data visualization in a way that you can have that can use on the tablet, on the laptop, on a mobile phone, in different types of mobile phone. So you can zoom, you can navigate, you can click, and so on. So it's important to be sure of all this. And lastly, we have the 10th practice, which is the hierarchy and the structure, which then make easy to understand what the chart is for and what its elements represent. Appropriate structure can help users navigate your visualization. So this hierarchy and structure gives not only for the people that's relying on the visual aspect, but also for keyboard. So you're going to navigate the information on a logical way. So you're not going to get the number and then get the name and the number again and the name, and then you get crazy with the name before the number. So using this hierarchy and structure, it's important to have all those facilities of navigation. So we are going to the last part of the webinar, which is about the tools and resources. All these tools and resources mentioned here, if you download the presentation, you have the links. So we have here the WebAIM contrast checker. That's a tool that we often use for digital accessibility, but also for printed accessibility. This tool is an online tool that you can check colors. So you see what's the color of the background and the color of the text in the foreground. So you can always play around with the colors in there. I strongly recommend this when you're creating your data visualization. Then you have the SIG-Tide Accessibility Simulator. This accessibility simulator, of course, it doesn't replace a person with disability, but it helps you to see and simulate some of your content. So you can see color blindness in there. You can see how a screen reader behaves on the screen, and you can see some other simulations for disabilities in this simulator, and you can download it. In fact, you can add these to your Chrome or in all. I know that's available for Chrome browser, but I think they are also available for Safari, if I'm not mistaken. But it's a very nice tool to go through. And then we have some tools and resources that that we selected for you. So accessible graphs tutorial, writing alt text for data visualization, make your Excel documents accessible to people with disabilities. Then we have this link, Chartability, which is a very nice way to study a little bit more about accessibility and charts and how you represent other graphs, data visualization. So it's a nice way to bear in mind and to quick test if your data is accessible. And then also the DataVis catalog. I'm going to just share another screen because this DataVis catalog is a nice asset to have because they show many of the data visualization that you can have, And once you click it, let's say a bar chart, once you click it, you can see the description, what a bar chart is, and the tools that you can generate the bar chart. So we have for those that are developers, or even if you are hiring a developer, you have references to get these in JavaScript, in HTML5, in Python, and other ways to generate this data. So you even have snippets of the code to generate that data. Or if you are using, if you're going to use other ways to show your data, you can use web apps. So you have Data Hero, you have Data Illustrator, and so on. You have all the tips in there. And also for desktop ones, you can use, for example, Adobe Illustrator or Apple Numbers. So you can find many ways to show your data. So this is a very nice resource that you can use. And finally, the last slide, you have the tools. We have articles that you can get more information on everything that I said today, especially for the first and the last article, the 10 guidelines. There's a lot of what I said for the 10 best practices. And the last content is WCAG 2.1 at a glance. So you can see the summary of the WCAG as well. And that's it. I think I'm 1 minute over what Nish has predicted. But just before going to the question and answers, also in the presentation, we'll have some slides in the end that was released by the UK government. So it's just like another representation how to be more accessible for different disabilities. So when we talk about anxiety, autistic spectrum, deaf or hard of hearing, so we have some graphics by the end of the presentation that you can consult later.